Hi, my name is Eric Gibbons. I am an art teacher, an author, an inventor. I do a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to show you how I made an N95 mask for myself. I happen to have just a couple of them from before all of this happened for construction, but we know that N95 is the kind of mask that you need that can prevent you from catching the virus. Most masks, like they provide in doctors' offices, just keep you from passing it to someone else. But this is the only mask that kind of stops the virus from getting into you to a large degree. You can't buy these anymore. You can't find them on Walmart.com, you can't find them on Amazon, you can't find them anywhere. So I was thinking about how could I actually make one, and I was able to kind of figure it out. Now, I'm not a doctor, I am not in the health industry, so take this as it is. It's a DIY. How you can make one, it's certainly better than having nothing. These people who are sewing masks for doctors' offices, NPR radio was saying they can be up to 85% effective, which is better than nothing, but they certainly leak on the sides quite a bit. So just briefly who I am, I did mention that I'm an inventor. I was one of the top 10 people in the Staples Invention Quest back in 2005. I had one of my products made nationwide. I've worked with Quirky.com before they went bankrupt and then re-emerged, so I've done some inventing that way. I'm an art teacher, so I'm always trying to invent things, tools for my classes, and when I teach art, I'm teaching problem solving. So even my students are solving problems. I give them a problem to solve and they use the materials we have at hand. I'm also an author. I've written a whole bunch of books for art educators and for art students. And these are all about problem solving, which is what I'm going to show you today, is how we problem solve. So don't underestimate the power of the arts. It's a very, very important subject, and all subjects kind of pull together in art. So we're going to be using some sculpture, some engineering, and some problem solving to maybe solve this issue of getting yourself an N95 mask, or coming as close as you can. Material-wise, all of this stuff is widely available, so you're going to need some kind of a filter paper. So I've used an HVAC filter. It has to be rated MERV 13 or better. And on the back of the filter, you'll be able to see the MERV rating, MERV. This is a 14, so it's actually better than the 13. There are some that have paper on the top of them and some have wire. I find the wire is easier to separate from the paper, whereas the paper ones, they use a lot of glue to kind of hold it together. And if you're ripping the surface, then that's going to be a problem. The other way you can go is with a vacuum cleaner bag that is HEPA rated, and it has to go down to the 3 micron level, and that will stop the virus from getting in as well. So that might be another option for you. You're going to also need some lemon juice. Believe it or not, citric acid kills viruses. And these masks, when you look it up on the internet, you can find all sorts of things, and they impregnate this with citric acid. So if a virus touches it, within seconds, it's killed. And they've tested it against the N1H1, the bird flu, lots of other viruses. So it's probably going to do well against the COVID-19. You're going to need some foil, some hot glue, some kind of wire, and plaster gauze is going to be key to this process, and I'm going to show you why. But that's readily available online, and if you're over 40 years old, you ever broke a leg or an arm, they wrapped you in this stuff. So it's now considered a craft supply that you can find in most craft supply places. All right, so we're going to dive right into it, and I'm going to show you the process for making your own. So I'm going to need to make a mold of my face and sort of the shape of my nose and mouth and chin. So I'm using plaster gauze. So it's a simple craft item that you can get at like Michael's, and Amazon has it online. All sorts of places have it. If you're over 40 years old and you ever broke your arm or leg, then this is the stuff that they use to fix it. So what I'm going to first do is fold it in half. I've also prepped ahead with some warm tap water. You want it to be as warm as you can stand, because warm water will make the plaster cure faster. And when I put the plaster on my face, I won't be able to talk because I don't want it to warp or crack or anything while this is going on. All right, when you're working with plaster, it's important to wear something that you don't mind gets plaster on it. Now, plaster will wash easily out of clothing. It's not very permanent, but if it gets into upholstery or something like that, then it's more difficult, particularly if you can't remove it and throw it in the wash. So if it's in carpet, it's awful. So you may want to do this part outside. So first thing I want to do is figure out, like, where does the mask touch my face? So it's touching the bridge of my nose here, and it's cupping under my chin here, and it's hitting my cheekbones here, and it's going, so it's kind of square down, which makes sense because that's the shape. So what I'm trying to do is a plaster casting of my face to include those areas, and then I'm going to work from that. But it's going to be a two-part process. So once I start putting these on my face, I'm not going to be able to talk, and I'll fast forward this video. But I am going to take the strips and dip them in the warm water. And when I take them out, I need to strain them with my fingers. I don't want it to be soaking wet, but it is going to be wet. So I'm going to give this a shot. Overlap. All right. I can't see without my glasses on, but I'm assuming I've got a ring of plaster on my face. But what I've created was a rim that's fitted to my face. So this is the outside of my face. Now we need to make another one that will fit on the inside, which is what we'll build our mask on. So this is the negative, we need to make the positive. So that'll be our next step. I'm gonna go clean myself up, and we'll do the next video. The other thing you'll notice is when it's on your face, you'll know it's almost ready when it starts to feel warm. Plaster, when it hardens, has an exothermic reaction, meaning that it gives off heat. So this is feeling warm. Not hot enough to burn you, but it's definitely feeling warm. So that's something to kind of pay attention to. All right, so this is dried enough. It still will feel a little cool, but it's definitely hard. This is the part that was against my skin. So now I need to build up this side with some more plaster. So this is the negative, so I need to make the positive. And I need to make sure the new plaster doesn't stick to the old plaster. So you can just use some soap and smear that on there. Anything water-based will be good to use in there. I would think that maybe olive oil or something like that might work, but it might affect some of the layers that are coming up after this. All right, should be good. Just wipe that off here. Again, I got my area covered so I don't have to worry about plaster getting anywhere. And I want to make a nice flat ring, kind of like this, but now it's going to be an inside ring. So I'm going to go ahead and dip these in. I've already pre-folded them and layered them. And go ahead and put that in the nose area. And I want to make this as flat as I can against the surface. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cover up these areas. So I'm going to put some strips on top of that. So now I'm going to make it nice and smooth. And take a look at the other side. Now I don't want to put more plaster on the inside because it'll trap all this together, but I can smooth out that edge here. Nice and smooth. Doesn't have to be perfect, but the more you smooth it, the better it'll be. You won't have air bubbles and it won't come apart like an onion can kind of peel when you have lots of layers. This should not do that now. All right, so I'm gonna leave this now, give it a good, I might actually leave this overnight. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave this overnight, let it dry really well, and then I'm gonna carefully pull it apart, and hopefully my soap worked well. Before you wash your hands in the sink, it's always a good idea to just use the water that you have here. If you're gonna be doing just a little bit, you don't want too much plaster to go down your sink. It can actually harden in the sink and make a stone in your pipes, and you can imagine how horrible that would be to clean. So I strongly urge you to clean up plaster, sort of like wet plaster dust and stuff, outdoors in a hose if you can, or in a bucket. When I teach a summer camp class, I put out 3 buckets and we wash in all 3. By the time you get to the 3rd bucket, you're totally clean. So these are the materials you're going to need to use to make your mask. So we've already used the plaster. I've got some lemon juice, foil, hot glue, some kind of wire, some kind of elastic, and you're going to need your MERV 13 or better filter. You'll have to pardon the birds and all, I'm outside just because I don't want to bring any of this mess into the house. We made the face filter, the face frame, and they came apart because I used the soap. And then actually the powder that was on the table, I dipped my finger in that and then put it into any of the little cracks and crevices, and then dipped my finger in water and then rubbed it down. You could also use spackling, but you don't want to raise it up. You just want to kind of fill in any of the gaps so you have a nice smooth channel going all the way around the piece. I'd also suggest using something that's siliconized so that when you're rubbing on the hot glue, it doesn't burn you, and the silicone, the hot glue just comes right off of the silicone. They actually make silicone pads for these kinds of things. So I could have used a paper clip for my metal. These are some garden clips that are supposed to be used to hold down your garden material to stop weeds. I happen to have a spool of soft annealed wire that I got from Nasco, and that's just because I do it for sculpture with my students. So I already hot glued a little bit of the wire down to kind of make it flat, and I just took a scrap of the filter product, and then I go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit more on top of here. So I'm trying to encapsulate the wire so it won't poke through and potentially harm something. And I'm going a little bit longer because I want this to kind of cup my nose and cheek. Again, I'm going to use the spoon to press on here and make sure this all gets down. Now, hot glue can get really hot, so this is going to be a helpful tool. I'm going to set that to the side. Now, lemon juice, you might be thinking, what the hell is he doing with lemon juice? But when you look up on the internet about the active ingredients in N95 masks, one of it is citric acid, and lemons have the highest amount of citric acid. And they've tested it on like the bird flu and the N1H1 flu, and they know that citric acid will kill the virus in just a few seconds. So what I did was, before I even started the video, I sprayed it down. It's still a little bit moist, so that I can work on all of this stuff, and hopefully by then this will be dry enough for me to use. So just spraying it with some lemon juice, regular old lemon juice you get from the grocery store, again, gives it citric acid, which will also help kill viruses. All right, so our next thing is I need to make a rim going around this with hot glue. You want to have kind of some paper underneath and some paper underneath where you're working. Plastic is not going to be good enough because the hot glue can burn right through it. So I'm going to make a little channel of hot glue going around here. I'm going to go a little bit at a time. And I'm going to go ahead and use my spoon to flatten it out because I don't want this to be super thick. All right, so that's got a layer of hot glue on it. So next, I'm going to go ahead and bend my wire on there. So I'm trim it down. That side's fine. And I'm going to put the fuzzy side down. Now I'm also going to put more of the filter fabric going around this edge because I want to seal it and make it so it's not stretchy. And this stuff doesn't really stretch, but I know that the hot glue is sort of rubbery, so that will stretch. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of this to the edge to stop it from stretching. All right, so next part, I'm going to use this foil to build up the mouth part of it because you don't want fabric right against your mouth. You want it to kind of puff out a little bit so you can move your lips. Big chunk. And just kind of ball it up. We use this in art class for sculpture sometimes. And put it in there so it stays. I'm going to go ahead and press this down. And I want to kind of make it cup out just like we see on a regular mask. So I've got one here. Okay, so we can see that kind of profile does pop out quite a bit. So I'm going to try and match that. Seems to be the right volume. Now I can use my spoon again, and I'm going to rub on the foil to smooth it down. And I want to make sure that the foil is not going to overlap my mask rim, so I'm being careful with that. It's just supposed to add some height. Oh, I also found out that you can use HEPA filter, like bags for your vacuum. So if you can't get the, you know, the FILTRETE filters, the HVAC filters, a bag from a HEPA filter bag for your vacuum will work. And maybe it won't have the gluing issue as well, but you will need to accordion fold it once you put it on, and that's where we're at now. Okay, so to get enough surface space, you can see on the filter they do this accordion fold so that there's more surface area for the air to get through, so the HVAC system does not have to work so hard to get the air to suck on through. So we need to do something similar for the mask. You don't want to just put it on like that, because then you only have that surface area. So if we do a little origami and kind of fold with what's already there, I can do 2 folds in, kind of like barn doors. And then I can do that again on the upper side and again on the lower side. Let's take a look at how that's looking. So then I'm going to start hot gluing this down, and I can actually get rid of some of the extra that's in here. So I know I'm not going to need the right half and the left half. Now you might think I'm wasting some material, but I see some glue here from the paper edges, so I just don't want to have to bother with those. Just tack it from underneath with some hot glue. So I'm just going to put a little bit on the edge. Just kind of tack the paper there. Now remember, this is really hot, so I'm not going to press with my finger. I'm going to press with this. I'm also trying to work from the left to the right so that things are even on there. Right, and now I'm going to go ahead and trim my extra fabric here. And now I'm going to go ahead and put glue in between and seal it completely. Okay, I think we've got our mask. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. All right. So this is the mask. I'm going to go ahead and trim it. And then I'm going to apply one more strip of the filter paper around, and I'm going to wrap it over the edge in case there's any little air gaps going around in here. So let me grab that. I'm adding the hot glue to the edge. I'm trying not to make the mask thicker where it touches the face, because that's already customized to your face. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue my elastic. Oh, here it is. So the points I want to get are kind of the upper and lower corners here. That's what I want to get. Thanks for watching. Now you can make your own mask. You don't have to use a bra. You don't have to sew it, poking holes through the filter. You don't need to add coffee filters to it and pour in some kind of powdered citric acid or whatever. You can make this at home. Now, it's not going to be as good as 3M. You know, they're manufacturing at a high quality basis, but this is definitely going to be better than nothing, and it tightly fits your face. So because it's custom made, each person is going to need to make their own. And then it'll fit on you. The last thing I want to say is please support the arts. Fine art is the best thing that children have in schools because we're combining problem solving with engineering, with math and science, and you can see me do that today. I'm always doing this with my own students, and you can see my blog at www.artedguru.com, and my books are at firehousepublications.com. Thank you so much. I hope you will support and share this video with your friends. I think it's an important one that might even be able to save some lives. Thank you.